All right, we are live. Welcome back, you guys, to Sagas and Sass. We've been on a 2.5 week hiatus-ish,
Mhm.
give or take. So the last episode we did, it was a holiday episode where we read parts of and discussed the best Christmas pageant ever. It was a lot of fun. I know Jonathan and Nami weren't able to make it due to holiday things, but Nick and I had some guests, Becca and Seth, with us, and it was a blast. So if you haven't watched it yet, definitely check it out. Even with the holidays being past, there's still a lot of fun to be had in the discussion and whatnot, I think. So I'm Tara, and today we are going to be talking about the first half of Crooked Kingdom. So we're going to jump right in to our synopsis, once again provided by the lovely Nick. So again, we are talking about Crooked Kingdom. We just started this. We read parts 1 through 3, so about half of the book. And this book should also be known as Leigh Bardugo gives us all the feels. In case you forgot, Van Eck kidnapped Enij at the end of Six of Crows, so we are not okay. The prologue involves someone who we never see again, as usual. Very Game of Thronesy, by the way. But we know it's important to set up the plot, so it's okay. A Grisha squalor. Well, we actually have seen Ritvenko once before. Come to think of it, he was a side character in the prologue of Six of Crows. There was like a very short conversation.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, it was very, very brief. And honestly, the only reason I remember that is because I, read these again, obviously, so recently back to back. But so this man, Ritvenko, he's a Grisha squalor. He's very surly, but very powerful. But then he was overpowered and kidnapped by some Shu who also seem to have special powers. And one of them even has wings. What the what? We then immediately get back into action with the crows. As you'll remember, Van Eck gave the crows a deadline to deliver Kue, Yule Bow to get Enij back. And we picked things up with the deadline fast approaching. The crew is in Club Cumulus planning a small heist. It turns out they're distracting Van Eck's lawyer so that Kaz and Wylan can break into his offices and figure out where Enij is being held. Wylan is still wearing Kue's face, and Nina is dealing with her power withdrawals, so neither is at the top of their game, but they still pull it off.
Meanwhile, Enij is being held by Van Eck, and he's using another Sully to try to get her to talk and spill Kaz's secrets. She tries to escape, but it was all a trap, and Van Eck tortures her. Luckily, she points out that Kaz won't trade her if she's broken and of no use to him, so Van Eck doesn't do any lasting damage. It seems like things are being set up to rescue Enij, and Van Eck is prepared. But of course, Kaz is a wily bastard, and he never planned to rescue Enij that way. He was setting things in place to kidnap Van Eck's pregnant wife, Alice. Van Eck is furious to have been outsmarted. Meanwhile, Jesper's father, Colm, arrives in the city to meet him as the bank is pushing the deadline for the debt that Jesper owes. He still doesn't know that Jesper gambled away all the money his father loaned him. When Jesper goes to meet with Colm, they are attacked but manage to escape. Kaz tells Jesper's father to give them 3 days to get the money and asks him to wait in a fancy hotel in the city.
They arrange a trade with Van Eck, Alice for Enij, and plan to meet on a bridge in the middle of the city. Kaz has set up contingency plans, but he didn't count on Van Eck involving the city guard. Luckily, Kaz and Enij still manage to evade capture, but as all of this is happening, Shu soldiers show up with superhuman abilities like being bulletproof and having wings, all sorts of crazy shit. Everyone manages to escape, but only after Nina shoots one of them point blank in the eye and Wylan sets it on fire. It is Bananas. The crew meet at their hideout. Kaz reveals his plan to sabotage Van Eck's sugar silos using a chemical weevil, cleverly nicknamed the Weevil by Jesper. Doing so will raise the price of sugar, and Kaz had already bought shares in other sugar companies. Kaz has plans on plans on plans. But the Grisha in the group have realized that the Shu are actively hunting all Grisha in the city, and so the rest of the team force Kaz to help the Grisha escape in addition to getting the rest of the team out of the city.
The team starts making plans and working on getting everything prepared for destroying Van Eck. And that's when we find out that Van Eck has been lying to Wylan. His mother is alive, just in an asylum. Wylan and Jesper find her, and Wylan blames himself for his mom being sent away. It's also then that Wylan decides Van Eck is truly evil and should be destroyed. And the knowledge that Kaz can utterly humiliate Van Eck helps Wylan feel a little better. But guess what? Nina and Matthias meet Zoya and Jenya. Oh, damn. And Matthias and Nina make out. Ooh, we'll leave things off there, but things are just getting good.
All right. Now this book. We were kind of all chatting earlier today about how difficult it is to discuss the first half without spoiling some things from the second half. So we're going to be really careful. But this episode will probably be a little shorter than usual because, again, we don't want to spoil anybody. I mean, really, I would assume anybody who's watching this or listening to it has probably read the book, but still, we're keeping it to the first half for a reason. So really the main big difference that we kind of get into right away is that Wylan is now, an additional point of view character. And do you guys have any thoughts on this addition at all? Like, has it changed your favorite POV characters? Anything like that? Do you like him as a POV character? I don't know.
I love Wylan. Wylan became one of, if not my favorite character in this book. So yes, is the answer to your question.
I think his POV in this book made it even more obvious how much his POV was missing in the first book, especially because, like, he has a more unique perspective to everybody else because everybody else is from quote unquote a life of crime, whereas Wylan is like, "It me, rich boy. I'm washed. Please help."
Oh my gosh! And the emotions.
What was it that cursed? Didn't y'all hate that?
That was lovely. And he's the I think that also his POV not being in the first book, and not that I disliked Wylan or anything, but I definitely like him a lot more after reading his point of view, like getting into his head a little bit, because he just seems kind of like this odd addition, like, oh god, he's only there because Kaz knows who he is and whatever. But it turns out like he actually is more useful and has a lot of good insight that you don't really get to see a lot of in the first book.
Yeah, up until now it was just like, yes, the glorified explodey bait.
I don't know if it I don't know if it necessarily changed any sort of order other than Wylan kind of being inserted in he's I like him as a POV character better than Matthias, obviously, and Jesper probably. I possibly better than Inej a little bit, but they also have a lot of similarities in terms of her kind of being so I don't know, just kind of goody, and Wylan isn't necessarily like that, but he's got the naivete that she doesn't have, so they're still kind of on that same level, in my opinion.
He also, and I just noticed this when I was going back through stuff today, he has some of the longest chapters.
Oh, that's interesting.
I did not notice that, which I guess goes to show that I did enjoy his POVs because they didn't feel the chapters didn't feel draggy or long compared to others.
No.
I always, whenever I get to a Matthias chapter, I just sort of sigh.
They were probably longer because since he wasn't in the first book, they had fewer chapters to get his pre-book trauma and life story into the story.
Yeah, that's kind of it's playing a little bit of catch up for sure. But I don't know. I kind of liked that. Some of the backstory for the other characters felt a little bit dragged out, like between the two books. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, you couldn't have told us this in the last book. Come on. But I mean, it's continuing on with Wylan, even though this kind of jumps ahead to the end of what we read. His mom still being alive, that reveal was like, whoa.
that gutted me.
Yeah, I'll give that one
not prepared.
Not prepared at all. And even the second time around, it was out of left field, bitch, slap in the face. Van Eck, you suck.
It really does. Like, that is the other thing, is that, like, it just shows how vile Van Eck is. Because, like, I hated Van Eck, but to lie to your son and tell them that their mother is dead when you really just ship them off to an asylum, like, that is just a whole other level of fuck.
Also, like, straight up shipped her to an asylum so he could marry a girl as old as his son.
And take all of her money.
And take all of her money. Like, what?
Yes, that was the other thing, was like setting it up so he got everything. Oh, it was just
Yeah, like not even whiling him. And it's like, I know, like there's like the kind of asides that are like, oh, but he takes such good care of her. He buys her all the paints she wants and stuff like that, and whatever. And it's like,
and don't forget music lessons.
Oh no, music lessons is his new wife.
Oh
yeah.
Which is actually kind of funny. It's like at the beginning, Inej has those moments where she's Van Eck is using oh my gosh, what is the stepmother's name?
Alice,
thank you. I knew it started with an A. He's using, Alice's music teacher's name. I can't for the life of me remember, to try to wheedle away at Inej. And it's like, at first, Inej's thought is, oh, well, it's because he's Suli or whatever. But like, I mean, I also thought like the kid, like he was trying to almost like it was almost like in a romantic way, maybe. It's like, we'll do anything we can, even try to hit on her to get her to talk, as if that's somehow gonna work, or eat, I guess. Although I don't know how much you can really starve yourself to lose that much weight to like be able to fit in a smaller space. Like, it was only a couple weeks. I mean, I've been super ill and lost like 15 pounds, but I had 15 pounds to lose.
You could lose a lot of weight very quickly if you want to. It's not healthy, but I mean, I had friends who were wrestlers who were down to they looked so thin compared to what they should, even though it was horrible.
Well, and they're holding her in a theater, and so the air system there has to be larger, so it might be,
Yeah, no. I'm sure it's bigger than like the vents and everything are bigger than like obviously a normal house or whatever. I just mean like, she specifically says that she's starving herself so she can like fit in them better. And it's like, ooh, like, I don't even, is it even a couple of weeks? I guess it is about 2 weeks. I think at the end of Six of Crows, he gives them 2 weeks.
Also, though, generally, correct me if I'm wrong, but I always assumed that I always thought Inej was described as like very slim and like tiny and wraith-like. So
yeah, exactly.
I feel like, the idea that she was able to do that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. It seems like, kind of.
Well, it just seems like. It seems like she was probably on the very edge of being able to shimmy through a vent, and she's like, I'm gonna get a couple extra inches.
From where is, I guess, what I'm, just because of the way she was always described. This isn't Nina we're talking about, Well,
the thing is that she was always described as skinny, but skinny doesn't mean skin and bones. And obviously, like, she is, like, able to fight and athletic, so I assume she has lean musculature. She has muscles.
Words.
She has muscles, okay, and they're small and lean, and and now she was not eating, and all the muscles dissolved, and then she does a little crawly crawl,
and she basically is a living skeleton at that point.
Yeah.
Before she was bone, she was muscly bones, and now she is bones.
She's just bones. It's all just bones
all the way down.
Bones. Why is this so amusing to me? I am so sleep
I don't know, but I do
You're
know that
sleep
there's a small there's like a 4 foot tall probably 5 foot tall Halloween skeleton somewhere in this house, and I think next webcast I'm gonna have it just propped on the desk behind or just standing behind me creepily. Look, I've invited Enish over.
Well, I don't know if you guys
I'm feeding her some waffles.
I don't know if you guys have ever watched One Piece, but all I can think of is Brooke, the like animated skeleton character who just runs around singing "I'm all bones," and that's the only thing.
Well, she can come to Skelly Night now.
Yeah, there you go. Skelly Night, for those of you who don't know, is a skeleton themed night at Ice and Fire Con, which is my Song of Ice and Fire Game of Thrones convention. Started, I want to say what is the word I'm looking for?
It started.
It started as a joke, and it's become like practically an official event based around a tequila that is literally called Skelly Tequila. But
vile.
The good thing, the good thing is, Inej gains, she definitely starts eating again once she does get loose from Van Eck. Although
just like single-handedly brings her waffles like all the time. Like I know Nina's having a rough time right now, but low key, just like that's in my head that's how Inej gets back.
Well, and it's honestly, it's not. I don't want to spoil anything or jump ahead or whatever, but just as a note, like it's not really that long though between when they get oh my god, if I could talk, Inej back and when and the end of the book, I think it's only days, so maybe a week. So like there's actually points later in the book, and this is very good just follow through on Leigh Bardugo's part where Inej is doing things or fighting or whatever, and she's saying she still feels weak from her time as a prisoner, which is it's one of those little things that like it probably didn't have to be brought up or included, but it's nice that the author thought to mention it again.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So other than Inej's, I guess like the leading from Inej's failed attempt at escaping and Van Eck's like threats to break her limbs and whatnot. And I did really like when they did what they had to do to actually get Inej out, how they kidnapped pregnant Alice and poor pregnant Alice. Like, and the thing is, like, I saw one of the discussion questions I saw was like whether or not Kaz and the gang are like actually bad guys or whatever. And it's no, of course they're not. They're very gray. They're supposed to be like most of them are definitely anti-heroes at best. But the fact that they kidnap Alice, but they're being so nice to her and like they're complaining about her, but it's all like amongst themselves, under their breath and stuff. And, they treat her really well considering, and they bring her, they bring her back to Van Eck with no intentions of really harming her. Even Kaz, I don't think actually would have. So
I quietly wished for a twist where Alice was just like, all right, I'm gonna join the crew now. 7 of crows. Like she's closer to their age group. It would have, been valid. But also I know that would have been out of left field and like no way what. But like in my weird like headcanon fanfic that I've written, I'm like, yep. She joins them.
Yeah, she's definitely a little vapid for that maybe, but like she's not a bad person. Like everything we hear from Wylan about her, and even when she talks about Wylan, it's all very like friendly and kind,
Yeah, she clearly likes Wylan a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
No, she's like, let's be BFFs. You don't have to call me mom. I acknowledge this is weird. like straight up, I really like the idea of Alice. I just want her to be free from Van Eck McGross face.
McGross face. The idea that Wylan looks like him.
We learned some interesting things about how Alice sees things, although I think that comes out a little bit more in part 2.
Yeah, I think it does as well. And also some interesting things about the state of her pregnancy, which are hinted at in the first half of the book. I think they're only ever hinted at, but we'll get into that next time. But I mean, the whole how they I mean, obviously they knew that Van Eck wasn't going to just let them, switch off and not try anything. But I mean, that whole situation, the switch off is very much like a testament to Kaz's ability to read his opponents and not necessarily know exactly what they're going to do, but certainly be able to figure out close enough where he can kind of plan for almost any contingency.
Yeah. That was a great moment in the book.
Ironically, reading that, I was heavily reminded of the book about Ross Perot's rescue of his employees in Iran and how the Green Beret mercenaries he had hired had every contingency that they would storm the jail if they had to, but they expected that the revolution would storm the jail first and that they needed to be ready to just whisk them away once the Bastille fell, essentially. So it was like they were planning like 8 or 9 different options of how to do something for a caper, and the two of them just hit me as I read it, but that was, one's a true story and one's not. So
I honestly I didn't know about that. I was probably kind
of, for those who don't know, Ross Perot he was a slightly crazy presidential candidate.
Yes, I do know who he is. I just didn't know about that.
Yeah, so he owned a company called EDS, and during the Iranian Revolution, a number of his employees were taken hostage by sort of the Iranian government, but sort of not the Iranian government, to try to blackmail EDS into paying a lot of money. And when the State Department did absolutely nothing, he's like, well, screw this, and basically hired mercenaries to get his people out of jail. It's an awesome book by Ken Follett wrote the book. The movie is horse crap. It was totally just made up scenes that didn't happen, but the book is really worth reading. It reads like a thriller.
Movie?
It was also called, both the book and the movie were called On Wings of Eagles.
Okay, all right.
But
I mean, I honestly, if I can find like a cheap copy of that, I might read it.
Yeah, the book was awesome, and
I love, like, I was a history major. I love historical stuff. And also my dogs bark a lot now, like even more than they used to, because there's so many more people in this house, just FYI. But yeah, I being a history major, I love history, but I like knowing about things like books like that are well written and interesting about more modern history, because there's like, what we were taught in school and everything doesn't ever get that far. Even in college, I think like my most of my history classes is like, oh, you were lucky if you got through World War II still. Like, how is that still happening? So yeah, I'll have to check that out. Well, and I mean, and also like, well, I guess another thing is like, assuming that was like a team that was like coming up with all these plans with these different contingencies.
Correct.
It's again, like, it just speaks to Kaz's like general genius that he is, just because he doesn't tell his team like much of anything. Like, he gives them instructions and he gives them the barest of information. Yeah. And it's almost kind of shocking that they so often pull things off the way they do. Like, really. I mean, I think that is that the only like sort of heist thing that happens in the first half of this book. I mean, there's them getting into the lawyer's office, but that's kind of nothing.
Well, they also get Alice, which is not as big of a like heist thing as some of the other things, but they do have that beautiful moment where like it's clearly being set up that they're trying to break in to save Inej, but then the reveal happens and it's that they had been planning to get Alice out.
Yeah, that's definitely the reveal there was really good. I mean, I knew it was coming this time, and still really, I was reading it, kind of trying to figure out where there might be a tell, I guess. And there really wasn't. There, like I knew it was going to happen, and it was still like, nope. There was no. Because there are times, especially on the reread, there were times where I was like, oh, okay, I should have seen that coming. But that was one where it was like, no, not really. They're very, like, Bardugo is very, very vague, when they get the paperwork and everything from the lawyer's office and whatnot, you really assume they're either going to, I mean, it sounds like they're going to go to the wrong place, but it's Kaz. So you're like, no, they'll go to the right place. They'll go to the theater. And then in the end, that's not what it's about at all. So.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. And that I did not see it coming. We've gotten to the point where certainly we're like, okay, not everything is going to be as it seems. But I always think of it, or usually think of it in terms of like, Cass is going to have a contingency plan. So like Van Eck has all these things set up, but then Kaz is coming through a different entrance or something. I did not expect him to be doing myself. Yes, exactly.
Kaz has a contingency plan with a tank. Kaz has a get-out plan.
Sometimes you bring the tank.
Kaz plans something secret with a tank. I'm not saying the first book gave me an expectation, but the expectation was more tanks, less misdirection. And the second book like really worked effectively to throw me with that while still being authentic to how Kaz thinks.
Yeah.
Or how I thought Kaz should think based off of what I had previously read. Books are weird, man.
I mean, I think we all wish that Kaz that they'd been able to bring that tank from Fier to, just toss it onto the ship. It wouldn't.
It might have been useful.
Like straight up Edge driving the tank onto the boat and being like, "Okay, it's time to go." Acting like nothing was wrong. You just be like, "Yes, there's a tank here. Let's go." Also, speaking of Edge, I forgot to mention back when we were originally talking about her kidnapping scene, but like the scene where Van Eck like threatens to chop her leg off, and like,
oh gosh,
that like fear and like her POV there, I think that was like the most like that we've really seen her. Like even during like the climb chapter, when like her shoes are literally melting off her feet, she's still like chill adjacent. Versus that one where she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Actually, that was one of the. Oh, sorry, Jonathan. Go ahead.
Well, that was the most cringeworthy scene to me. That was the one where I was, and probably the only time I was like, "Ooh, is this going to be a George R. R. Martin like they're actually going to chop her leg off?" But then I remembered it's young adults.
Yeah, even worse than chop it off, smash it. I feel like chopping it off, it's like either one would suck, but the smashing would be like so much pain, and eventually they'd probably have to remove it anyway in this world. But that was actually one of the quotes.
Or maybe not with Grisha healers, though, can it?
Who I think there's still some things that they can't quite fix, but also like it would be a timing thing. Like if he smashes her leg and she's there with this, she's there with it for days before before Nina's there. Well, I guess not so much.
Nina wouldn't be the right healer. It would have to be a real healer.
Yeah. But so even if she saw the best Grisha healer that existed, like if it was days or weeks later, I don't think they'd be able to fix them really.
Yeah, there's nothing to imply that they could fix that level of damage.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, man, smash limbs are gnarly. That might have been the bro-iest thing I've ever said out loud.
Gnarly.
Smash limbs are gnarly, man. Gnarly, bro.
Surf Nami. Smash limbs are gnarly and the waves are sick.
You should come to California, dude.
As in, like, the waves will make me sick by looking at them.
Are you going to take up surfing?
Me or Nami?
One fear. No.
Well, yeah. So I mean, when when that was one of the quotes that I had highlighted from the first part of the book, was she's talking about how, Kaz had rescued her and their lives have been a series of rescuing each other. But, then she realized she believed that he would rescue her again, that he would put aside his greed and everything and come for her. And, but it had been so long that now she's not sure anymore. And when Van Eck threatens to smash her legs, or I can't remember if it was both legs or just one of them at first, but she told him he'll never trade me if you break me. And the reason why she believes the reason why Van Eck didn't, why he stopped was because he heard that she was speaking the truth, because she does actually believe that Kaz would do that, or wouldn't, that he wouldn't trade for her, that he wouldn't really rescue her or whatever. If she was ruined, if she couldn't work for him anymore. Which
that chapter made me very sad.
Yeah. I mean, you can obviously they've been Bardugo has kind of been setting up like a romance between the two of them, despite Kaz's aversion to physical touch and everything. So like to then hear that, not only to it's like no matter how much they care about each other, no matter how much good they've done for each other, she actually has this in the back of her head all the time that if she's not worthwhile to him, as the Wraith, that he will, let her go, like forget about her, like not save her again. It's very sad.
Yep.
And shockingly, when we did Six of Crows, like I think for sure the second half, but most of it, I had so many like Matthias quotes that I highlighted for whatever reason. But there's not that many this time. They're kind of a good mix. The first couple I'd highlighted were with about Inej being in captivity and remembering Kaz's better terrible truths and kind lies, and then realizing like she believed that he would actually forget like set her aside if she wasn't useful to him. But Matthias at one point does I think this might be the only like straight up Matthias like thought that I highlighted. It's a little bit of an aside, but when Nina was withdrawing from Param, he remembers her saying or asking him, like, can you even think for yourself? I'm just another cause for you to follow. First it was your all broom and now it's me. I don't want your cursed oath, his oath to protect her or whatever. And I think that kind of ties into Kaz and Inej a bit, because not that, that neither one of them can think for themselves or whatever, but that not and maybe not so much that they're causes for each other to save or whatever, but it's kind of still along the same vein, if you ask me, that they're all kind of attached to each other because of their own like dark pasts and everything. And like if they were really thinking for themselves and doing their own things, like Inej kind of wants to do with getting a ship and hunting slavers, would they be as attached to, would any of them be as attached to each other?
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like we're all so tired today.
Lots of critical analysis.
Big brave agree time. Super insightful right now.
Well, the only other Matthias thing that was, this is really just something I thought was funny though. So random aside, in terms of humor, Nina, they're in like the like little Ravka part of Ketterdam, and she tells Matthias that he needs to calm down and try to look friendly, and he like, he kind of is like, okay. And she's like, no, not sleepy, friendly. Like, pretend everyone you meet is a kitten you're trying not to scare. And he's like, animals love me. And she's like, fine, pretend they're toddlers, shy toddlers who will wet themselves if you're not nice. And he says, very well, I'll try. That just really rang with me because like animals do love me, but kids not so much.
It made me giggle.
You said kittens, not or kids?
No, kids. No, animals love me, kids not so much.
I tend to get a 50-50 split no matter what. For example, today my morning was made, even though I was completely and still am completely sleep deprived, because I walked into my building and there was a man and he had 2 large dogs with him, and they saw me and they went, oh, friend? And I was like, friend! It is me! Friend!
I is friend. And like low-key confession, I was gonna take the stairs like at least a few flights up, but I got in the elevator because the dogs were there and it would have been a sin if I didn't keep petting them. And
well, yes, of course.
I am weak for love. Basically, I got to pet dogs. Didn't get to pet children, but that would also be
that may be a bit weird.
They are germy right now. Stay away from the tiny germ.
So did you guys have, I mean, that was just like a random aside about Matthias actually being kind of amused. Well, Matthias and Nina, I guess, but Matthias actually being kind of amusing for once. And I guess speaking of Matthias, do any of us like him any more after the first half of this book than we did after Six of Crows? Like, do we see some admirable character growth, even if he's still, obviously we can't totally just forgive and forget his past, but any thoughts on that?
He's growing on me at this point. Like he's still probably one of my least favorite characters, but he's definitely grown on me in the first half over the end of Six of Crows.
I felt morally offended that he made me laugh. I was incredibly offended that he made me laugh.
Yeah.
After which I just sort of sat there and made a grouchy face for a bit.
It was very rude of him. He really should have considered your opinions.
Like, how dare you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I know we kind of touched on this a little bit when we were discussing Six of Crows, like that yes, at least Nami and I think Jonathan maybe he'd even read ahead at this point, so we knew that there was character growth to come, which was at least for me it was hard. It was kind of, it's like hard to not let that overshadow like the feeling I have about him. Not that I fell in love with him or think he's amazing, but you really do. In Six of Crows, it's very much, it seems like it's all about, it's just about Nina, and like he doesn't, even then it's like it's very reluctant. He doesn't care about anybody else, and even hers, it's a very reluctant sort of choice, to choose her over his previous life. But he definitely is in Crooked Kingdom. He's definitely trying. And it's good. And I mean, that sort of change takes time no matter what. So it's it's good to see him.
Before he was an evil Nazi Iceman, and now he is a slightly melting Iceman.
Well, he's definitely the least interesting character.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I forget if you hate him or not. I mean, it's just his journey seems to be the most linear without any sort of real interest in following that journey for me. I mean, it's just not the part of the story that excites me.
What would have made him more compelling if he had his wolf with him, or basically his dog. Dogs make everybody more likable. If he had a dog,
what if instead of him we just had his wolf?
There we go. That's it.
I feel like
but then it could not have been young adults.
Well, not if his wolf and Nina had something going.
I think that's what
dare
we
you.
This suddenly turned into a furry fic. No.
Jonathan, that was the absolute betrayal. I did not expect that from you. How could you do this?
What if Matthias and his wolf became one and they were like a werewolf? And then they fall in love with Nina and we just have a whole like new werewolf offshoot.
I
think
guarantee
Twilight-
I guarantee you there's a fanfic of that somewhere.
Yeah, having spoken it aloud, it is now in existence.
Oh my god. Now I'm just thinking about Werewolf Matthias, and I just
Oh no, when you say now that I've spoken it aloud, it's in existence. What I'm saying is, I think that probably already it would almost shock me at this point if that did not already exist.
Werewolf Matthias.
Yeah. Although it does seem very like obviously he got lost on the ice and he never made his way back to his wolf and his wolf had already been released into the wild and everything probably because they thought he was dead and that's what they do with their partner wolves. But like I don't know, like Matthias was back in Fjerda for a while. Like it would have been cool if his wolf had like made his way back to them, and there we go again with 7 of crows. I guess if you want to count the wolf as like his own member of the gang, with 7 of crows. That now we just want it to be 8 of crows. Can we just add Tricelle, I think is his name, and Alice onto the pack here? It's a pack now, not a
Well, what about
a flock
Colm?
or whatever.
also
What about Colm?
We already added Kue and Colm, so we're
Oh
like,
yeah. So we're just yeah. But there's I mean that's why this book couldn't be called 6 of anything because there's like 25 members now.
whole flock now.
Flock
Murder.
of crows.
They're a murder. Yeah, no, I know they're a murderer.
Murder of
But
crows.
honestly, thinks about murder enough for them already. Like,
Yeah.
also, you'll be happy to know that I did a quick preliminary Google for Werewolf Matthias, and
Oh,
I am
God.
happy to announce that it returned no results, and I have never felt more blessed in my life.
Yeah,
Right,
it's because you're not
Tara,
directly
something for you to
searching on
write.
AO3.
Yeah, no,
What, Jonathan?
There
Oh,
is
something for me to write. Oh God.
Jonathan, no.
If only I had time for fanfic.
Only I cared about Matthias enough to write this.
Maybe one of our mini fans will write that fan fiction.
Perhaps. I have a friend who is obsessed with
I'm
Matthias.
sure we have like 1 or 2 that listen to us. Maybe one of them will write it.
Matthias fan in the middle there.
We definitely have some because we get a couple dozen views at least more than that per episode. So, and also I don't know if I have access to the podcast statistics. I haven't even tried to look, but honestly, we might get more downloads than we do people watching a live webcast, which is kind of
Probably.
how I've in the past I've on my personal stuff I've definitely the live webcasts personally they're way more fun for me, but people just tend to want to listen to podcasts when they're driving and stuff, I suppose.
Well, if you're listening and you enjoy writing fan fiction, feel free to write about Werewolf Matthias and
Or
then
if you
send it
like
to us.
drawing art, this is the one
Yes,
Yes,
also
art
great.
that I will.
Oh, I would
happily
love
do.
to see Werewolf Matthias as art.
Also, remember, we love growth in this house, and if you want to write a Werewolf Matthias AU, I will accept it as long as he has an actual progression of character development and follows through with it instead of
Yes.
just being like, "I'm good now, peace, we out."
Yep.
Yes, you're right though, Nami. In the end conclusion is Matthias would be far more interesting if he had his wolf with him.
Or was a werewolf.
Or was a werewolf, yes.
I mean, I think with his wolf might not have been as good as getting another wolf
I don't know. I mean,
because it's it would have been preposterous for him to find his wolf again. It's just
But they share.
finding another
happened
wolf
in Game
or
of Thrones. Like,
stealing a wolf.
But John, they save him. They have a magical bond. Okay, it's like like their ice god commands it, and he was like, I bequeath unto you, my weird Nazi son, a wolf for you to be Nazi bros with. And the wolf is like, oh, you are my bro. And the man is like,
You're
yup,
my bro.
my bro.
Look, in A Song of Ice and Fire, direwolves show up all over the place. It's not that much of a stretch for Matthias's wolf to show up.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
one
Arya
thing.
runs into Nymeria again and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a wolf. I have not experienced wolf senses. For all we know, they might just be able to smell out their human from across countries, and that's just something that all wolves can do. Science.
Look, I watched a documentary called Homeward Bound, and these dogs trekked across so much of a journey, and they made it home. And so that clearly can happen.
Have you seen the less amusing and far more documentary-like version of Homeward Bound called The Incredible Journey?
No.
Oh, a long time
Is it-
ago.
It was
Is it
one
gonna
of
make
my
me cry?
favorite movies as a kid. No, I mean, well, since you've seen Homeward Bound, you know what happens. So no,
Okay.
it's different looking dogs and a different looking. It's a Siamese cat instead of a Himalayan cat. The difference being
Mhm.
they have the same exact coloring, but Siamese are short hair and Himalayan
Mhm.
cats are long hair. So yeah, it's they don't talk. They don't talk. The
Of
whole
course,
thing is
sure.
yeah, because it was made in like the 60s, maybe 70s. It feels very documentary-ish because it's just narrated. The whole thing is
Mhm.
narrated. You know, this guy telling you what the cat and the dogs are doing and everything. I mentioned to Dean, I don't know, sometime earlier in our relationship, we got to talking about things, and I somehow mentioned this movie and how I hadn't seen it in a million years. And I had this whole sob story about how my family's house was robbed when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and they stole our VCR, and the VHS tape that was in it was our VHS tape of The Incredible Journey. And this is like back when it was like they didn't really make movies as like home movies. So I think we had like recorded it off the TV or something, like before you could really buy a VHS for like a normal amount of money in a store. So Dean found it on like eBay or something and like gave it to me as like a gift. And I was like, oh,
A+.
and then we watched it and I was like, oh wow, there's some nostalgia here, but this is not what I like. It's not as good as I remember.
Oh my god. Also, speaking of dog science from movies, science dog movies dictate that if anything had happened to his wolf would have, according to a dog's purpose, reincarnated into another wolf and still been able to find him. That's how it works, apparently. So says movie science.
So says the dog's purpose, which is very, very depressing.
Oh my god, yeah. Let it be known I haven't actually watched that movie, and I would never watch that movie. I have only heard it mentioned on a podcast in which the whole discussion was, why does this exist?
Oh, I went to the movie theater to see something or other, like not long after I lost my dog Wendy, and there was a preview for that movie for the second movie, just a preview for the second movie, because somehow there's a Dog's Purpose movie, and I was like sobbing. I'm like I gotta go to the bathroom or something. Like, I'm gonna miss the beginning of whatever, like the Pikachu movie or something.
Why would they make one of those, much less a second one? Do they just like
someone watches them,
crush your heart
and buys them?
Yeah, someone enjoys that sort of torture.
Aren't they like Sharknado 8 or something like that?
Yeah, but at least those are funny.
They're like so bad they're good. This is just sad and sad and sad. It's like the horse movies where the horse dies. Like, why?
Yes, well, let's not dig too deep into things dying right now. Anyway, so completely bad segue, but like we wanted to keep this about an hour tonight, especially because again we don't want to spoil anything or get into anything too deep from the second half of the book. But I think the main theme of the first half of this book is a little bit of a carryover from the very end of Six of Crows, that being daddy issues. We've got Jesper and his amazing father who he's just screwed over, and like his father's still like, but Jesper, I love you, what's wrong?
Well,
And then
was that daddy issues or is that child issues?
Oh no, that's child issues. I was using that to because we see a lot of Jesper's relationship with his, or we see the two people we get most of the input from on Jesper and his father's relationship are Jesper himself, obviously, and Wylan. And Wylan, has to see like Colm and how good he is to Jesper and how much he cares and everything. And meanwhile, of course, as we find out at the very end of the first half, his dad told him his mother died, but really he just hid her away in an asylum, but then also, there's several passages that are just so like heartbreaking. When Van Eyck tells Wylan, like, I treat you no more harshly than the world will, and Wylan's response to that, and this is very much like a trauma response, and an abuse survivor response is like, who else would be so honest with me? Who else loves me enough to tell me the truth? Like, yeah, my dad is cruel, but he's protecting me as well as himself and the Van Eyck Empire. And it's this again speaks to Leigh's, she is just very, very good at, writing these sorts of, she's just very, this isn't the first time she's shown us an abusive relationship and done it in a just, it's heart-wrenching and awful, but also it's heart-wrenching and awful because it's true. I mean, as somebody who had a father who like used to tell me, and not that my dad was super abusive, but like I would get like an A-, and his response was, there's room for improvement. I never knew what like praise was from my father. So it's very, and then of course at the end to find out, oh my God, like not only is Van Eyck just like a terrible dad, it's like, oh, he's like nice to Alice, but he's nice to Alice after he shipped his first wife away and all. So
yeah, I think that line was like definitely the moment where I transformed from, yes, look at this, look at this small boy. All right, cool. We shall protect him. And this was the moment where I was like, I shall protect him. I must keep him safe. And yeah, let it be known that I'm adopting all the crows, except for Matthias. I will put him on probation.
Fair.
I'll give him visitation rights from the orphanage until he proves himself.
Good plan.
But yeah, I and yes, no, the Colm thing is definitely these are Jesper's issues, and it's very depressing again to see how Jesper's.
It's very sad, honestly, to see Jesper's relationship with his father, because it's one of those examples of like, even if people try their hardest, you still might
always work
for a person.
Yeah.
And it's really obvious that Colm is a good man and a good father, and like just like very adorable, good bean, want to squish his cheeks, and because I'm a whole ass adult, I'm sitting here crushing on Colm Fahey instead of like the children, because they are my children, and obviously I crush on their father, right? But so like straight up, I feel bad for both of them, and I wish to shake Jesper and put him in like I don't know, Gamblers Anonymous, and be like, your father loves you, it's okay, baby. And then I wish to just also shake Colm and be like, your son is an idiot, but that's okay, you don't worry about it. You'll still get along.
To be fair, Colm is not perfect. There was definitely some of the information we got about his relationship with Jesper's mom and how he wanted her to hide, that she was Grisha, and everything. It's like, and of course he only wanted her to do it for her safety. And, I don't know if they knew at that point that Jesper also had,
Yeah, from what my understanding was, I don't think he ever really like solidly knew that. I sort of took it as an Aditi kind of like hid that ish.
Yeah.
Or like rather didn't hide it, but didn't also say, "Hey, check this out." But was mostly like, we'll just not talk about it. It'll be fine. It's one of those things that like, it's like, he was so definitely wrong for doing it, but like I feel bad for him because it like very much came from a place of like, I need to protect my family and it's dangerous.
Well, no, and that's the thing. Nobody can be perfect.
Oh, that's the part that sucks so bad. And I'm just like, I just want them to be happy. Yeah, happy family.
But that's the thing, though. It would be unrealistic, honestly, for Colm to just be the perfect father who like swoops in to like save his son and everything. Like, and the fact that him, wanting his mom to hide her powers simply to protect their family was like the worst thing about him. Like,
I love him so much. I'm like, if this is your worst characteristic, like, fuck yeah, we'll take it. Like, thank you. Also, Loki, could you imagine if Crooked Kingdom was just Colm showing up and being like, children, I shall adopt all of you and everything is now fixed.
Come live on my farm. Was it a Yurta farm? Or I don't know what kind of, I can't remember what kind of farm it was. Come live on my farm in
it was
the Wandering Isle, or wherever they were from.
Novi Zem.
Oh, are you Novi Zem? Okay. But Colm is Kalish. That's why I was thinking.
Yeah, Colm is from the.
Is that supposed to be Ireland?
Yes, it's very much supposed to be Ireland.
I think the funniest thing about headcanons about Colm and him meeting Jasper's mom, and like basically like headcanon that he goes to Novi Zem and just is horrifically sunburned all the time. Because she like finds him sunscreen and is like, look at this dumb or like tomato man.
Well, and he definitely like pursued her for like a long while too. Like it seems like he was constantly like, but I like you, be with me. And she was like, but he eventually wore her down, which isn't that how life always works or something?
I imagine him having to wear her down, not because it's one of those like, oh my god, stupid man, I'll just give in type of things, but it's like,
no, I don't.
And he was horrifically sunburned, and she was like, what is this ugly lobster creature? And then eventually he gained, a real person's skin tone that wasn't just burnt. And she was like, oh, okay, so he is handsome. All right, okay, we can dig this.
Yeah, I don't imagine that Colm was like wearing her down in that like creepy man way. I imagine he was just kind of there and offering himself, and
romantic lobster with flowers.
Yeah. And eventually, she was like, all right, yeah, I put it off, but I do like this guy. I mean, that does happen.
Also, since we are here, if somebody can draw me like art of Colm as a lobster, This is fine. I'm really good at brain thoughts today, y'all.
You're so good at them.
We are.
This is what sleep deprivation gives you. Werewolf Matthias, Lobster Colm.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm literally physically on West Coast time in terms of where I exist in the world right now, but my body, my work schedule and my body are still East Coast time. So I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I haven't had to get up.
Working like 5 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon now?
Like 6. I get up at 6 and work until I'm done, which really is at least 3. But like yesterday, it was like 4:15. Today it was 3:30. It depends on what I have to do. It's just
that's the danger of getting up early.
Well, I mean, it's the same way that my job has always worked. So it's like I used to roll out of bed and start my workday like minutes later at 8:30 in the morning. But like I would work until 7 o'clock at night. So, but anyway, so we are like right at an hour, which is like we discussed beforehand. We wanted to keep this particular episode right at an hour because, again, like, and it's already been so difficult to not spoil the second half of this book, and this is like the end of the Six of Crows duology here. So we're gonna have so much to talk about 2 weeks from now, like so much. But for now, do you guys have any last thoughts about the first half of this book, about anything we've talked about before we close up for the evening? Nothing. You got nothing. Nami's just lobster. For those listening to this as a podcast, Nami is making lobster claw. Oh God!
That reminds me of one of the strangest movies I've ever seen in my life, called The Lobster. And I won't say it's good because I didn't like it at all. But
it's so good. I loved it.
Oh, you loved The Lobster?
Yeah.
You understood that movie?
I don't even know what this is.
Also, well, all this is reminding me of is the Crab Rave video. And it's just a bunch of crabs dancing on an island.
I mean, they're not really dancing. They're just being crabs, but somebody set them to music and... Oh God. All right. Well, we will be back 2 weeks from today, which, God help me, I don't know what the date is right now. The 27th. We'll be back on the 27th to close out Crooked Kingdom. Expect a slightly lengthier episode, I'm sure, because wow, are we gonna have a lot to talk about for those of you who have actually finished reading the book. Yeah, there's just so much that happens that nobody wants to spoil that right now. So y'all have a lovely evening. It was very good talking to you about Grishaverse again, because it's been almost a month since we talked about the Grishaverse. So this was lovely to see you all back, and we'll see you in 2 weeks to finish off Crooked Kingdom, and then we have more Grishaverse after that. So check out sagasandsass.com for our Grishaverse schedule, which will run through April due to the show being released in April. And then we've been talking about doing the Red Rising series next. There's always a possibility that might change, but if it does, it'll change sooner rather than later. So have a lovely night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.